Good evening, parents. Mrs. P here again. I said yesterday I wasn't going to say that. Sorry. Today is our last video on chapter 5. I know. Can you believe it? Well, you probably can't believe it. You're probably like, what? You're already done with chapter 5? Well, we are. I hope your students have been talking to you about it. It has went very quick because we've done a lot of this stuff already. And it's not just a review, which it is, but we've added even bigger components to it that they have really been grasping and comprehending. So I'm very, very proud of them, as I mentioned the other day. Today, our last lesson was lesson 5.6. And that is asking the kids to find a whole number if all they have is the percent. So the first example we did was we looked at 12 is 50% of something. And what I told the kids to look at and how I told them to work these problems is you have to look at part, total. You have part of something and you have part of something and you want to know what the total is. So in this case, it's looking back at how we write ratios, which if you remember, I told you they look like fractions. Look like fractions means something different. I mean, they're still parts, but they're not looking at, oh, it's just something out of a whole, but parts of many things. So we're going to work with finding a whole number from a percent using this first example of 12 is 50% of a number. This is part of a number. What is the number? I don't know. So 12 is part of a number that I do not know. And 50% is part of a number that I do know. 50% is 50% out of 100%. And then it says this lovely word right here, and in our mathematics, is means equal. So what this is telling me that 12 is equal to 50%. 50% is 12. But I don't know what it's 50% of. I don't know where I got that 12 from. I don't know the total. I know a part, but I don't know the total. Well, I know all the parts to percents, 50% out of 100%, and I know 12 is part of something, but I don't know what the whole is. So the way I teach kids to do this is it's called break it down, build it up. So we look at what side of the ratio we have a complete component of. And in this case, my complete component is my percents. So I can break that down. Break it down. And what do I mean by break it down? Simplify it. Reduce it to its simplest form. And I can take 50% over 100% down to 1/2. How? I divide it both by 50. 50 goes into 50 once, and 50 goes into 100 twice. So that is now 1/2. And that 1/2 is still equal to 12 over something that I don't know. Well, how am I going to find out what that something I don't know is? Well, can I build it back up? Oopsie, left the letter out. Build it back up. Can I get from 1 to 12 using something that would state that these are equivalent? Well, to get from 1 to 12, I can multiply it by 12. And if, again, I do something to the top, I must do it to the bottom. So I will multiply it by 12, and 12 times 2 is 24. So my answer over here then is 24. Now your students can see this problem very easily because 12 is 50% of something. Well, what number over here, if you took half of it, would give you 12? They know right away it's 24. They didn't even have to do this ratio work. Sometimes their mental math on number sense answers the problems for them. It's the same if I wrote something like 4 is 50% of what number? Well, what number, if I took 50% of it, would give me 4? They can see that right away. It's 8. So those are fairly simple. When it gets harder is when we do problems like these. And I'm going to do a different one over here. It gets more difficult when, of course, the percents aren't pretty and nice. All 10s. So here's another problem. It says 12 is 15% of a number. Again, students can't see just, oh, well, it's half. I know it's 8. They are actually going to have to do the work. So they're going to have to create an equivalent ratio. 12 over something that I don't know is equal to 15% out of 100%. Because it says that 12 is equal to 15%. And if I had everything out of this number, it would give me back 100%. Again, I'm going to break it down and then build it back up. Break this down. I just use BD there. I look at it. I've got to know my LCM and GCFs. I got to know my least common multiples, my greatest common factors. 15 will not go into 100 evenly, so I'm just going to divide this by 5. Divided by 5. 5 into 15 goes 3. 5 into 100% goes 20. And that still has to be equivalent to 12 over something. I'm now going to build it up. BU. How do I get from 3 to 12? I multiply it by 4. If I do it to the top, I must do it to the bottom. And it tells me that 3/20ths is equivalent to 12/80ths, which means 12 is 15% of 80. And that is what we worked on today. Now, real quickly, hopefully if I have time, I want you to know that we also talked about percents of 10. And I told the students the easiest percent that they are ever going to be able to work with is 10%. So I gave them an example. I go to Tin Kitchen. I spend $15.75 and I want to leave 10% for the waitress or the waiter. I can do exactly what we did yesterday. I can convert that into a decimal and make it 10 hundredths. Or, because we know percents are based on 100%, and we know that that means 2 spots behind the decimal, then we must also know that 10% is 1 spot behind the decimal. So to find out 10% of $15.75, I simply move the decimal 1 spot, and that gives me $1.57. Now, parents, they may round that up for you, but we just did an opening introduction for the students. So $1.57 would be 10% tip on this $15.75 bill at Tin Kitchen. From there, I can find out what's 20%. Well, I just double this. 14, 11, 3. I do that twice. That's now 20%. And I can go so on, and so on, and so on. I can even split this in half and find out what 5% is. When I did that today with your students, they were, I want to say mesmerized, but not just mesmerized. They were intrigued. I mean, their eyes lit up like, oh my gosh, I get that. So I really think as we move forward in math, and more so as they move forward in life, they are getting things that are going to be relevant and prevalent to where they're at in the real world and things that they're doing out there in the real world, as they get older. Got a little choke. So this is what we worked on today. This is what we talked about today. Just finding a whole number from a percent, setting it up as equivalent ratios. We went through it in class. I did like 4 or 5 examples. They did them with me. They have 5 problems tonight for homework. So I did do better. 14 to 7 to 5. How good can you get? But that's what we discussed today. Again, if you have any questions, they have any questions, feel free to contact me anytime. I probably will not make a video for tomorrow since we're going to be in review mode. Yeah, review mode. We will be taking a test next week on Chapter 5. After that, we're moving into measurements. But your students are doing a great job. Again, I thank you for everything. I'll see you later. Have a great weekend.